Hey, boss. Okay.
I said I'm fine.
Me to bed, see you in the morning with the frosted Superman, but it wasn't on it, and we lost it.
You can talk to me.
It's been really, really hard for me.
Hello, my name is Dr. Reed Tuckson, a co-founder of the Black Coalition Against COVID, and I'm really excited to welcome all of you to tonight's town hall, which we have named, Let's Talk About It, Mental Health is Real. We are pleased to offer this during Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. We know that one of the unfortunate consequences of the COVID pandemic has been a worsening of the mental health challenges affecting communities of color, and as such, this program is designed for you, and we intend to do three things tonight. Number one, we're going to educate you with the knowledge and the insights of an outstanding panel of trustworthy experts in mental health, and by providing science-based resources for you to use after tonight's program is over. Secondly, we want to share real experiences from our very special guests, people who are like you and members of your family, and who can serve as models for all of us to get comfortable in talking about mental health in our community. And third, we hope to inspire you. I'm confident that you will enjoy the special gospel music and spoken word poetry that we will offer later in the show, and that we know will serve as sources of hope for all of us. Well, to help guide us through tonight's event, I'm pleased to introduce our celebrity host, David Mann, who so many of you know so well and who has a personal connection to this topic. David is an award-winning actor, producer, comedian, author, husband, and father. Most of you know him as Mr. Brown from Tyler Perry's plays, TV shows, and music and movies. David, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And as I welcome you to the show, I wonder, how are you doing? And please tell us why you're so passionate about this topic of mental health.
I will say I'm doing better. And I'm still a work in progress. The reason that this is, so passionate for me, and that I wanted to lend my platform to something like this, is because I found myself about a year ago in a deep state of depression and was too embarrassed to share it with anybody because of the stigma that comes along with something like this. And, I woke up and I said, I wonder how many people can I help by just sharing my story. And, I feel you got this platform. Don't just have it for just the sake of having it. And the reason I was embarrassed because, one lady shared with me, you make the world laugh. You can't be depressed. And I wanted to share with people that it does not discriminate. Mental health does not discriminate. It can get anybody. So that's why I'm here to share.
Well, David, let me ask you one more question on that. And I'm sort of curious, how did you then develop the courage, the willingness to go public with something that, as you say, so often it becomes difficult to talk about with people you don't know?
I wanted to, after after I shared it with my family and just seen how it helped them. And I got to talking, and my therapy is on stage, even though I'm a stand-up comedian as well. And I shared it with a couple of people, and I shared it with the audience one night. And there was a pastor that came back with some of his deacons, and he said, this can impact the world. And it just, a light went off, and like, you got to tell it. You can't keep it to yourself. So many people can be helped by just knowing that they're not alone. And so that's why I decided, let's do it.
Have there been any negative consequences by your coming public about your own journey?
I have not. Like I say, the one that, that people are like, you of all people? And it was like, Yeah, it hit me too. So this just goes to show it could hit anybody, because my thing is I make the world laugh. And so it just goes to show, look, it can impact all of us. It has no economic status. It doesn't care who you are, doesn't care what you do for a living. It can affect all of us.
Well, listen, thank you again for sharing your story and for sharing your celebrity to bring people to this conversation, and we appreciate it. I'm pleased now to turn to that panel of medical experts that I mentioned in the introduction. And joining us tonight are four outstanding mental health professionals. First, I welcome Dr. Tish Hall Brown. She's a PhD, licensed psychologist, director of the Behavioral Sleep Medicine Center at Children's National Hospital, and she's the author of a book called Navigating Teen Mental Health, an expert's guide for parents. And we'll make sure that through the course of this program, you'll see how you can get a copy of that. But remember, Navigating Teen Mental Health, an expert's guide for parents. We're joined by Dr. Ivan C.A. Walks. He is the CEO of Ivan Walks and Associates and co-host of the Black Health Trust. And like me, we both share the distinction of having been commissioners of public health for our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. Also with us is Dr. Charmaine Jackman, licensed psychologist, global spokesperson on mental health, and founder of a very innovative company called InnoPsych Incorporated. We may hear more about that in our conversation. And then finally, we are joined by Dr. Coral Ann Griffith Hunt. She is also a doctor of psychology. She is an international human, industrial, and trauma psychologist. And in addition, and not unrelevant to this program, she's also a minister. Let me begin with you, Dr. Walks. What do we mean when we talk about this idea of mental health? What is the definition and what does it encompass?
David Mann, Dr. Tuckson, fellow panelists, thank you all for allowing me to join and be with you tonight. This is so important. Mental health is interesting in that when someone has a mental health challenge, we talk about it as if we've just discovered mental health. Oh yeah, this happened, and it's actually not that. It's not that at all. Mental health, if you look at the World Health Organization and you look in the dictionary and you look at the United States and all these places, the best way to put together all of that, mental health is a state of mental well-being that enables people to cope with the stress of life, realize their abilities, learn well and work well, and contribute to their communities. So if that's what mental health is, if it's an integral component of health and well-being, it underpins our individual and collective abilities to make decisions, build relationships, and shape the world around us. Now, what impacts it? How come everybody's not just mentally healthy? It's impacted by personal issues, community issues, socioeconomic issues, and I could talk a lot. There's a lot of research that states why all of these things impact something I like to think of as resiliency. We all get bumped from time to time. Can we bounce back? Those old things they had in the old days where there's weight in the bottom, you push it down and it bounces back up. None of us are going to get stopped from being pushed down. Life happens to all of us. But are we in an environment where we can protect our mental health and we can actually get back up when we're knocked down? So, mental health, not the absence of mental disorders. It is a state of well-being that is an integral part of our overall general health. That's the simplest way that I can say it, Dr. Tuckson. That's the first part of my 3-hour lecture. So,
well, I'm going to turn to Dr. Griffith Hunt for a moment and ask her also in terms of this notion of how we come to understand this difference in languages between mental health, mental wellness, and emotional well-being. How do you sort of see that? And maybe you could also take the opportunity, Dr. Hunt, to talk about the relationship or connection between our mental health and our physical health.
Thank you. That's a great question. And I must say, I am honored to be amongst you all. This panel is fantastic. And I'm honored to be here this evening. When we we talk about mental well-being, and we put so much concentration on mental health, and there's a stigma just with the word mental, right? And so we've begun to really look into, well, what is emotional well-being, and how do we get individuals to be comfortable to talk about emotional well-being and just their emotional health. And so let's define emotional wellness really quickly. It refers to your acknowledgement, your knowledge, your appreciation of how your feelings are. How are you feeling? How are you showing up in the world? And how you show up kind of tells us how you're able to cope. You see, behavior is secondary. It's not the source, and it's not the primary source. And to be honest, we cannot heal what we can't identify. So it's important to identify our feelings. How is this connected to our physical health? If you're not emotionally healthy, if you're not mentally healthy, you're not physically healthy. That connection must be married. There must be that connection of the three. You know, in the United States, the annual cost of cancer is 216 billion. Diabetes is 245 billion. Heart disease is 313 billion, and trauma is 671 billion. Why is this important? It's important because many of us have been conditioned to believe that if we admit that we're sad or we are depressed or we have some level of anxiety or we are feeling overwhelmed, that we are admitting weakness. And that is not the case, because we all encounter some state of stress and trauma. It's a part of our human experience. You know, Desmond Tutu says, my humanity is bound up in your humanity, for we can only be human together. So let's break the cycle of that stigma and understand that emotional health is critical to our overall health. If a woman, for example, if a woman is pregnant and she is expecting a child, but she's experiencing severe mental and or emotional or some form of mental health or disorder, do you know that stress, and that hormone is called cortisol, it's passed through the placenta to the baby, to the unborn child? And so how does it affect us? You see how it affected. It goes from the mom to the child. Every system in our body is affected by stress. That is why emotionally we have to be healthy.
Well, I love that phrase that you use. We can't heal something if we don't identify it first. Before I come to my other guest real quick, Dr. Walks, just a quick sense of how big a problem is this for the Black community?
Oh, Dr. Tuckson, this is a huge problem for the Black community, in part because of what we were just talking about, that issue of stigma. So when I looked this up, I said, well, what's going on? So Black folks in America constitute 12% of the population. However, we constitute 45% of the children in foster care, 40% of the homeless population, and 50% of the prison population. So this is a huge problem for the African American community, and all of the things that impact so many other aspects of our lives are, you can look at that. You can look at that and you say, wow, it's disproportionately impacting our community. At the same time, availability of resources is disproportionately not in our community. So we tend to have more challenges that can lead to that sense of unwellness that can take us away from mental health. And by having more challenges, we have less resources. So this is a huge opportunity for us to highlight that in our community, because if we don't have resources available so we can normalize this going to the doctor or going to the therapist or going someplace for mental health services, if we don't normalize that and then insist through voting that the people we elect put resources in our community, it will continue to be disproportionately a problem we have, that people look at us and they don't recognize that this is something that with better overall health care. Mental health is part of general health. We doctors treat it the same way.
Thank you for that very much. So, Dr. Jackman, we've already heard from David Mann and a little bit from Coraline that there are some real challenges with being able to talk about this issue. Talk to us a bit about why we seem to have trouble in our community taking this problem on and being open and frank about it.
Thank you for that question. And again, wonderful to be part of this panel. I would say there are so many little things that contribute to it. So I would say first thing, and there are these cultural messages that we have about not talking about things that are going on with us. So in my culture, I'm from the Caribbean, we say, don't air your dirty laundry, right? So you would not go and talk to a stranger about your problems. That's one problem, that's one concern. The other thing is that, similar to what Dr. Caroline mentioned earlier, is that people often don't have a language to identify what's going on with them because of the stigma, right? In our culture, in many of our communities, in the Black community in particular, we've had a lot of issues where we don't talk about things, right? We have the uncle or the cousin who we know there's something wrong, but that person, we never really name what's going on with that person, right? So part of it is having a language and a vocabulary that allows us to know what's going on with ourselves and then to be able to communicate that with other people. The other thing that I would say is the perception that therapy and mental health is only something that happens in other communities, in white communities, but not in the Black community. And that actually plays into really harmful consequences, because if we ignore the problem, then it only gets worse. So I would say part of it is that we're not talking about it, or if we talk about mental health and therapy, we often talk about it negatively.
Yeah, and I think also, I know from conversations I've had with you before that also you seem to be concerned also that somehow there are taboo topics in our community that frustrate the ability to be open and honest. What do you mean by that?
So things, again, that we don't talk about, right? It's like we don't talk about Bruno from Encanto, right? We don't talk about suicide because it doesn't happen to us. Well, it does. Right. And so we're actually seeing the harm with not talking about it or assuming or thinking it doesn't happen to us is that people then suffer in shame and silence. So what we're seeing in terms of youth and child mental health, we're actually seeing that Black children's suicide rates are twice that of white children. So what's going on there, right? We have to ask that question. So it is happening in our communities and we have to talk about it. Part of my role, I worked at a high school for over 17 years. And my role was really helping families and parents kind of accept when their child is in crisis and help them navigate through the system. So these things are happening to us and to our families. And it's really important that we name it and we don't bury our heads in the sand and pretend that it isn't happening to us, because it is.
Thank you.
And
I'm sorry, David. Yes.
No, I was just saying, if I might add, having these type of conversations is really, really going to help in our community, because, it's one of those things we used to have in our community, in our little deal. I'm not going to tell them white folks all my business. That would be one of the things. So these conversations really, really impact our community, and it helps. And I found that and like you were saying, the stigma is let's just not talk about it, pray it away, it'll go away. And that's not the case. I see everybody was like, yeah.
That's that's a perfect lead in, Dave, to the question that I wanted to ask Dr. Ty Hall Brown. And that is so if we see a loved one that we think is having trouble, how do we know? How do we distinguish between someone who has good mental health and someone who is suffering from mental health? Is this all or nothing? Like you're either completely healthy or you're really, really sick? How does that work?
Thank you. So, we often describe mental health as a spectrum. On one hand, we've got good mental health, and on the other hand, we have mental illness. And like any spectrum, there's a lot that falls in between. When we think of someone with good mental health, we think of someone who experiences normal human emotions such as happiness, sadness, anger, joy, etc. And, the skill to manage or cope with these emotions so they can function at their highest level. When we think of someone with a mental illness, on the other hand, we might think of someone who experiences some emotions but has difficulty managing them to the point where they experience prolonged impairment in their daily function. So, for example, a person with anxiety who becomes overwhelmed by negative thoughts, that then finds it difficult to leave the house each day, and then as a result gets fired from their job. And then between those 2 points on our mental health spectrum, we have where the majority of people reside. And again, that people are experiencing some of the same emotions, but they have difficulty managing them from time to time. They may experience some impairment in their daily function, but it typically doesn't last as long and will go away on its own. So I'd say there's 2 major signs to look for if you want to help someone identify, or you want to identify within yourself whether you should seek professional help. And the first is there a symptom, or are there symptoms that keep you from doing things that you would normally be able to do? Do they impair your ability to function on a day-to-day basis? And then secondly, are there symptoms that are consistent and that are persistent? So do they last for a long time? And then are they continuing for weeks to about a month? So anywhere from 2 weeks to a month, if they're still there and you're still experiencing, let's say, that anxiety or that depression or anger or frustration that you just can't seem to let go of, it's time to seek professional help to make sure that you're able to kind of deal with and cope with these things that are impairing your ability to be successful.
Perfect. Well, while I have you, let me ask you a related but different question, and that is, if we're going to have good mental health, there are things that we probably need to do to prevent having a serious mental health problem. I know you work with adolescents and young people, so let's start with them, then we'll get our other panelists in on adults. But what do we say, and how can we help our adolescents and children to be able to prevent problems early on?
Sure. I mean, I can talk about this on a couple of different levels, but I'd say just first and foremost for all of us, we need to make sure that we give each other some grace and remember that we've all gone through a lot these past 2 years. This has not been a normal 2 years. We've all experienced things, seen things, dealt with things that we haven't really had to deal with previously. And I think we have to keep that in mind as we're moving forward and trying to get to some kind of level of normality and or deal with things that have happened during that time period. So on an individual level, I think we all need to give ourselves the opportunity to recharge and experience self-care as often as we need to, even if it's just 5 or 10 minutes of singing loudly in the shower as you prepare for bed. On a family level, when we talk about parents and what they can do, parents really need to check in with their teens more often. Often we think that teens are self-sufficient, they're becoming adults, they're on their way to adulthood, but they're really not there yet, and they still need our support. So we need to listen, ask questions, and actually hear what they tell us and tell us what's going on in their lives. Make sure that we understand that. Try not to dismiss their concerns or feelings, and ask them what they need so that we can be their advocate. Think about being on their side, being on their team, and not dismissing perhaps events that we may think of as trivial, but they really have a large impact on the team. And I'd say on a community level, we need to continue to discuss mental health as a normal part of life, just as we're doing today. I think this is amazing. But also try to incorporate positive mental health strategies at our jobs and in our schools so we can help people start to hone these skills.
I would also imagine, as you talk about being their support system, maybe we should also maybe not be blaming them so often or accusing or attacking them. Would that be also in your diagnosis, in your therapeutic plan?
Absolutely. I think for teens, sometimes when we see them doing things that maybe frustrate us or anger us, let's say, for example, we've asked them to do something and they're not doing it, or we see them laying around the house, we interpret that as a negative attribute to that teen. But we're not considering the fact that maybe they're going through something, maybe they're depressed, maybe they're anxious about something, maybe they're worried about something. So we need to start asking questions, not just jumping to conclusions that something that they're doing is wrong, or blaming them for everything that is happening in their life, and try to find ways to help them find solutions so that they can be successful.
Well, I mentioned, Dr. Griffith Hunt, that you are a minister, and I'll be coming to you in a moment, Dr. Jackman, because I'm very curious about your perspective on this. Before we get there, Dr. Hunt, you are a minister, and I wonder, how do you see the role of the church in helping in this for adults?
That's a wonderful question, because we are people of faith, and religion plays such an important role in our lives. Religion gives us a sense of hope, and it gives us a strength of resiliency. It provides structure and acceptance and a sense of belonging. And so when we're talking to people of faith, we cannot subtract their spirituality. You know, we are more than just our physical self and our mental self. We are our spiritual self. And faith leaders are the inspirational tapestry of our communities. Whenever anything happens, when we want to celebrate or when, you know, we're sad, we seek the advice of our faith leaders. And so we all have to collectively see ourselves and in the faith community as part of the stakeholder at the table, where we can speak to all of our concerns. But interestingly enough, you know, if we look at our sacred text, right, we're going to see personal, collective, historical, emotional, intergenerational, all different types of trauma. We see all different types of grief, fear, anxiety, anger, guilt, isolation. But what's so beautiful in the text is that we see empathy, we see peace and hope, and we see acceptance and compassion, and we see faith, and we see healing. But most important is wisdom. And the wisdom is important because when individuals come to us as leaders in the faith community, we must have the wisdom to know when they need external resources. Yeah. When our advice isn't the only thing that they need, our counsel is not the only thing that they need. We are created through relationship. We are loved through relationship. We are hurt and abused, yes, through relationship. But honestly, we can only be healed in relationship. And that relationship at times means the need for a mental health professional. And so faith leaders have to acknowledge that. Mm-hmm. They need to know, faith members need to know, what are the resources in your community? Who are the psychologists, psychiatrists, mental health providers in community? Because we work together to bring healing to community. I always say, sorry, go ahead.
No. It's just great. We're going to come back to that just in a moment, because I'm so glad you laid that out about where to go. And that'll be our next question. I want to just quickly ask, though, and by the way, I can't help but be impressed by that phrase you use, that emotional, that tapestry of inspiration. And by the way, when J.J. Hairston comes on later on, I think we'll see him being a big part of that tapestry. But Dr. Jackman, what is your thought on how we will also help to maintain a healthy attitude and prevent problems?
So I have two things I want to share. One is really, this is something that we can start with children from a very young age. And so we talked about it a little bit earlier, right? Our emotions and having an emotional vocabulary. So being able to teach your children very young, from starting very young, how to name their emotions and how to express those emotions. I think that is key, right? Because partly if we don't understand what's happening to us, what we're feeling, it's going to be hard to tell someone, and it's going to be even harder to ask for help, right? So I think that is key. And I think the Sound It Out campaign is a really great tool that helps children and parents start to name and be able to express emotion. The other thing that I want to mention is mindfulness. And these are a set of tools that are really built on learning breath work, finding ways to relax and be more present focused, and taking on a non-judgmental stance to ourselves. And so mindfulness is a great tool of strategies that, again, we can use for any age group. That is really a powerful tool to reduce stress and really support your daily emotional well-being. So those are two things I would suggest. Teaching children from very young how to name and express their emotions, and looking into mindfulness strategies, mindfulness meditation. Those are all kind of connected.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. I start every morning that I am blessed to be awake and aware in the world with mindfulness meditation, prayer and meditation. And I'll tell you, I don't know what people think I'm kind of off now, but I'm much better since I do that. Let's turn in the last 3 minutes that we have to where to go for help. And very quickly, Dr. Walks, there is a new phone hotline number, the suicide crisis hotline. Can you just quickly give us an insight on that one?
Yes. So the 988 is the number that folks should call when there's a mental health crisis. And maybe for those of us that look like us, it's huge, because you can call and have mental health response. Of course, again, depending on what's available in your community, you can call and have mental health people come as opposed to having law enforcement people come. It is, we've heard so many stories and seen so many stories of what goes wrong when you call law enforcement because someone is having a mental health challenge. Being able to use this number and looking within our communities to make sure that this number is connecting folks to resources, that's going to be key in helping us not only avoid the law enforcement type response that may be completely inappropriate, but also getting folks to good help. We know, all of us, all these faces I'm looking at on this call, we all know that there is help to be gotten. There's appropriate, proper, meaningful help to be gotten. And this 988 is an opportunity for us to hold our local leaders accountable and make sure that it results in something better for us than what we've had in the past.
So 988 is that number. And it is the suicide and crisis hotline number. And people, you should write it down if you need that. Let me just go back also in terms of where to go for help. I want to make sure again that we name the book, Navigating Teen Mental Health, an Expert's Guide for Parents by Dr. Ty Hall Brown is an excellent resource. We will put others on the screen as the program goes. But Dr. Hunt, also, let me just ask you, where would you suggest people go for help if they need to find a professional?
You know, interestingly enough, we also need to be sharing information with our physicians.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we mention how connected our physical health is with our mental and emotional health. We need to be honest and say when we're not feeling okay, because a lot of issues that we may go to the physician about that we think is just physical is actually related to our mental and emotional health. So I want us to, as people of color, we tend not to go to the doctor. I need us to go to the doctor and to share. You are the expert in your body.
Preach, preacher.
You are the expert. So I need us
30 minutes.
I need us to do that and know that it's a safe space. It's a protective space. And look at this panel. Finally, you are really seeing people that look like you saying we're here for you.
All right.
We're of you.
Thank you so much, panel. This has been great. And I think the take-home message, David, as we turn the show back to you for the other segments, is asking for help is key. No shame, none at all. Let's do the right thing. Everybody needs help at some time in their life. Reach out and get yours. David?
Thank you, doctor. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you all. That was some really good stuff. I learned a lot, so I know people out there learned a lot. And so there's going to be something that's really good that's going to come out of here. Now that we've heard from the experts who've set the foundation for all things mental health, we want to transition in talking to some various people in the community. They're going to share their personal stories and some amazing programs that they're doing to impact the Black community as it relates to mental health. First of all, you can see the big smile on my face because this person that I'm about to introduce, I love her. First, I'm happy to introduce a friend, Miss Kelly Richardson Lawson, who is the founder and CEO of the Sunrise Project, who is helping Black parents with children struggling with mental health wellness. Kelly is also the CEO of Joy Collective. That's right, it's a Black woman who owns a marketing and communication agency with clients such as Dove, Macy's, BET, Shea Moisture, AARP, and a lot more. She's also a wife and a mom and a mother of two. So help me welcome Ms. Kelly Richardson Lawson. Before we do that, we're going to watch a brief clip of what she does in the community, or listen to a brief clip from her podcast. Well, is it there?
We can just chat. It's okay. It's all good.
All right. We'll definitely learn more about what's going on.
Okay.
What is the Sunrise Project, and what has been your journey to get here?
Awesome. Thank you so much, David. And it's such a pleasure to see you. I love you too, and appreciate you and Dr. Tuxson and Sherry Thompson, so many others. The Sunrise Project is a nonprofit foundation that was started out of a space and a need for Black parents to have a safe space for us to get together and to share our journeys with our children who may be dealing with mental wellness challenges and or addiction challenges, which is the case and was the case at that time that I started this initiative. It was the journey to get here really started with my husband and I, our 19-year-old son, beautiful, brilliant, smart, charismatic, kind human being who started on a downward spiral when he entered ninth grade. And we found the signs. We didn't pay attention to the signs. We didn't listen to him when he was saying, I don't want to swim anymore. I just want to be a kid. I don't want to get up at 4 a.m. every day. I want to just be a kid. We didn't listen. And we found ourselves in the emergency room after a suicide attempt. And thank God he was not successful in that attempt. And my husband and I were in shock, and we were literally in shock because we didn't see the signs. So it was born out of the space where we were at a facility in Connecticut one Saturday, and we were looking around the room, and there was nothing but white parents. We're the only Black parents there. And while our challenges and our stories were quite similar, we as Black parents had very different challenges. And we faced, as many people have talked about, the twindemic and systemic racism and trauma and all of these things. And so I remember feeling so alone and so in need of a space to come together with other parents that may be dealing with the same type of situation. So that's what the Sunrise Project is about. It's Sun, S-O-N, and that's my journey and how it was started.
I noticed that with the S-U-N, so you played it from the S-O-N. I like that. I like that. Now I see you on the Oprah network with Oprah. Talk to us more about that. That's a big thing now.
It is a big thing, and it is nothing but divine intervention. A dear friend of mine, Shireen Miller Russell, who works at the Oprah Winfrey Network, actually listened in on one of the calls. She has 2 beautiful sons as well. And she called me afterwards and she said, more people need to hear this. More people need to know what you're doing. You could really help the world, because I'm very vulnerable on that call and I'm very transparent. And so she had me present what we were doing to other people at the Oprah Winfrey Network. And next thing you know, I was on a plane to California, and Oprah herself said she was personally going to turn pain into podcast. And so that happened. We're not doing this for any sort of financial gain. It really is in the intention and the shared intention with Oprah to help heal people, help people. And she has a big initiative called Own Your Health. And so mental health is such a huge part of our holistic health and well-being. So that's how it came to be. And we have about 50 episodes, podcasts on the Oprah Winfrey Network of podcasts.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
What has been some of the things that you've learned personally that helps you understand where your son is personally? Something personal that you can share with us.
Yep. I think in the spirit of time, I'll say a few quick things. One is to really acknowledge the situation. And many of the guests tonight and the incredible experts have said that. Acknowledge the situation. And I know for sure we don't heal until we reveal. And so acknowledge and then accept that the child that we have may not be what we thought the child was going to be in terms of their journey. Accept them for who they are and love them for who they are. Radical acceptance means being fully and holistically in love with that human being as a human, not necessarily on a certain path. So acceptance, acknowledgement, and then believing that God's going to work it out. There's been a lot of conversation about faith, but I have tremendous faith. I've transitioned from a space of fear from my Black child who walks out the door every day to a space of faith, knowing that he's going to be fine as he walks his own journey, which is a completely different journey than what I ever imagined for him. Completely different journey. And it has been really challenging getting there, but acknowledgement, acceptance, belief, and just quite honestly letting him be. I remember distinctly trying to wake him up to go to practice, to go to school. I just let him be. He's going to figure it out. And God's got this. And so that is the main thing. transitioning from a space of fear from our Black child in this world that we live in to a space of faith and understanding that he's going to be okay because God's got him. That is the main thing. And that journey has been, and I'd say the last thing is to stop comparing myself to anyone else, because comparison is the cheat of joy. And joy is what we all want to have. And so I don't compare myself. He thankfully graduated from high school. He doesn't want to go to college. That's okay. And it's really okay. I want him to be happy and well and a loving and kind and caring human being that gives something to the world. Who cares if he goes to college or not? I didn't say that for a long time, but I really care. All I care about is that he's healthy and well and a kind and loving human being.
And I think sometimes just as a parent is just stopping and having some grace for our kids. We have grace with everybody else. There's grace for everybody else but our kids. Absolutely. That's something I had to learn.
Absolutely. We have to give them grace. We have to let them be. We have to let them walk their own journey on their own time. And we have to get out the way. It's like learning to be, someone said, one of our experts, I can't, this is not my words, but this expert said, we have to be a coach. We have to be a guide from the side instead of a sage from the stage. Once we learn how to be a guide from the side, it's like a coach. They're running down and back and forth. They're running back and forth. And then the person has those little nuggets, has those morsels. But I was stage from the stage. You want to do this, you want to do that, you want to do this. That's what most Black parents do.
And it's funny you say that, because we have to take the coach's approach. I sometimes would take the drill sergeant approach with my kids. And once I learned how to show them how to make the touchdown rather than tell them, go make a touchdown. It's like, well, let me draw it up for you. Or let me show you.
Yeah. So that has been those are some of the learnings I've learned. And it has been tremendous. It has been huge growth for me and my husband. And we have created a relationship. So it's like, the relationship is so much more important versus being right. So all of that to say, that's what I've learned. Mm-hmm.
What's next for the Sunrise Project?
What's next? We're going to continue to expand our programs. We've had incredible speakers like the Doc and the Dude. I know are coming up next. Just grateful for all of the wisdom that's shared every week. So we will expand. Our intention is to have conversations for young people. We'll be working with the Ad Council on the incredible work they're doing within the mental health space, and expanding so that young people have a safe space to come and talk with one another as well. The parents, we have live programming on every Sunday morning at 9 a.m. And then, of course, the podcast can be heard wherever podcasts are found. But our intention is to continue to help one parent at a time. And if we can do that, we've been successful.
Wow. Thank you so much for all that you're doing. And thank you for walking in and saying, there's no faces like me. I'm going to make it happen myself.
Yeah.
That's what we need. More people that are just willing to take the initiative and do it and just stop talking about it.
We're trying. And thank you for having me here. Such a blessing. I appreciate seeing you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Now, next up, this is a little interesting, because when I heard the name, I was like, Doc and the Dude? They're also known as Kendall Jasper and Kanan Jasper. Yes, they're brothers, and they're brothers. They're from Brooklyn, and they keep it honest. These dudes hit straight honest, that with a common sense and a comedic approach. These are real live brothers that address this mental health issue in a way that only they can address it. Let's take a real quick look at a clip that they put together for us.
It's Kendall Jasper, aka Doc and the Dude. We at Harvard University, just kicking it with BMF, Black Men's Forum. Annie up, right? Let's get it. It's about to be an amazing experience. I'm looking forward to kicking it with the young brothers.
The intent of Doc and the Dude was to talk about mental health issues from a wide range, because everything can't come from a doctor's perspective. Something gotta come from the dude perspective or the lady.
As a Black man from a small, underserved community, it's common to have childhood friends who go down the wrong path. Now at Harvard University, I feel that I left them behind.
Not to cast aspersions on my homeboys, but everybody's GPA wasn't looking like mine. Right? I'm gonna keep it a band. You know, they smoking weed, not really my lick. Right? I'm in a fraternity. There were times that I struggled with feeling ashamed about my accomplishments. There are times when I used to cringe when I would hear people introduce me as Dr. Jasper. Part of that is my own journey of understanding who I am. The other part of that is the large majority of my friends that I grew up with haven't followed the same path. Everybody in the hood shares in my success, and they let me know it. And that quickly squashes any ideas or feelings for me that I left them behind. Maybe trying to understand the experience of being at such a great academic university with some ghetto ass tendencies. You know what's dope about therapy is therapy's like talking to a friend that you can talk to everybody else about, and then you ain't gotta worry about that friend going to talk to the people that you just talk shit about in the room. Right? Like my mom, my dad, my siblings, my girl, my boyfriend, like whoever. Hell yeah, I talk about you.
I do believe finding places like this to excavate some of the things that you may be thinking about. They may seem small, but you gotta get them out. You gotta, because they will fester and they will mutate into something else. It will harden.
So I know I need to talk to you and ask you for your guidance.
There's some trauma that we may be desensitized to, but it's there and it exists in your subconscious. And one thing about your subconscious, you cannot turn it off.
Wow, man, that's awesome. That was from a program that you guys did at Harvard University for Black males. Wow, can I just start? Something that you said in there that really hit me. It was like I cringed when they introduced me as a doctor. Why?
Well, I think that, you know, it may be part of the keeping it real syndrome, or you kind of feel like in some of those accomplishments, it shines a light on maybe things that they didn't have the opportunity to achieve, or they chose to take a different path. You know, and I come from a family of a high level of humility. And I think within that humility, you know, you kind of say, okay, well, I understand that this is me and I've earned this at every turn, but let's not necessarily make it about that and the expectations associated with being a doctor, as opposed to just recognizing that I'm a human being who happens to have this level of education, and things, you know, worked out for me. You know, opportunity met luck.
Well, take it from a high school graduate, I would be telling everybody.
That boy's smart. That boy's smart.
And then the obvious, how did you guys come up with Doc and the Dude? Where did that come from? Because that right there in itself is an icebreaker.
Well, I tell you what, I think I came up with that name because I think we both of those people, right? I'm not a doctor. You know, I went to public school, so, you know, I don't know how it goes.
You the dude part.
I'm the dude part. So I got a lot of dude tendencies. You know, I'm outside, as they say. I'm outside. But we've had a high focus on education, but we from the hood, and I like the hood too. You know, just like I like esteemed places, I like esteemed people, but I love my brothers too that I came up with. So we had to represent for both parts, because everyone needs it. You need it from the doc perspective, and sometimes you don't need to be talking to a doctor. You just need to be talking to your dude or your homegirl or your homie. So that's where it came from.
And I think that's where you guys bring the best of both worlds. It's like You know, you got the dude, you got the doc, and we hit you hard. I looked at that clip before, and I was just like, I wanted to go back to school.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting experience every time we get to a university around, especially some young people. But interesting experience.
But I also want to highlight this really quickly. If you think about the Black experience, we are all of those things, right? Depending on who we are in front of, depending on the company, the job that we have to engage in some form of code switching, and we have to engage in some form of showing our representative, depending on the company that we're in. And then obviously when we're home, being a totally different person or being our true selves. So I think that the doc and the dude is synonymous with the idea that, you know, we are all of those things. And, you know, when I mentioned growing up in East New York, Brooklyn, I can't take that away from who I am, regardless of how educated I am. You know what I mean? So we are all of those things. And in order for us to help us, we have to be able to show some of that to us.
Yeah, like a lot of people, sorry to jump in, Kay, but a lot of people, we always talk about solution, but you can't have a solution before you understand the problem and the system it comes from, right? So if you're too hasty to rush to fix something that you don't know nothing about, you're going to waste time and you probably put it into further danger. So you can't be that disconnected from anything. You gotta really have a large means of intake and have familiarity with a whole lot of different things. And you can't do that from one particular place or vegetating in one particular corner. You got to get out there and get involved. So,
and I think that kind of leads me to the next question. It kind of segues into that. You all formed the organization Jasper Psychological Corporation to help the underserved community. Please share with us more about the program and the clinics that you operate in the Black community.
Go ahead, Doc.
So we have two organizations, ARJ Cares, which Master P just shouted us out on Gail King the other day.
What up, P?
And look forward to doing some things with P in the great state of Louisiana.
Y'all got a little hood and a little doctor in you. That's what you got.
Well, because we provide services in the state of Louisiana and several other states. But what I really want to highlight, not that any of our other programs aren't important, but we've owned a school for the last 11 years. And the large majority of the children that come to our school are children that have consistently been suspended or expelled from traditional school settings. And we're allowed to have them every day, at least 6 hours a day, providing them education and mental health treatment. So if you think
food,
obviously,
a lot of them have vegetables in like 2-3 months.
So, but
imagine what that's dealing with.
But I'll speak to the impact on the family quickly with this story. Just imagine you have a single mom. She's a mother of 3. She's the only income that's coming into the home. She can't keep a job because she always has to be called to her son's school because he's consistently in trouble, suspended, expelled.
Yeah.
She loses job after job. They come to Jasper's House Day Treatment Program, our school. We're very equipped to deal with his issues. Mom doesn't have to worry about us calling her to come to the school to manage his behavioral issues. We're not going to expel him or suspend him. Mom, you can keep your job, earn your income. We will ask you to be a part of this treatment process, but we're committed to managing his issues, to lend itself to some financial stability in your home, to reduce that stressor for you, reduce you having to move, reduce you having to find another job, reduce the concerns about you being able to put food on the table for your family. And that's why us taking care of us is vitally
super important.
Yeah. Wow, man. You guys are doing some powerful and great things. Any last words that you want to leave with our people that are watching?
I would like to say something about our diet. Our people have to be hyper focused on our means of intake, and that's not just
nutrition diet. That means our intellectual diet, our emotional diet, our spiritual diet, our musical diet, our film diet. We process that, we digest it, and we live it out. So we got to be extremely careful on what has access to our brain, because the things that have most access to the brain is going to control the brain, and your behavior and things that come out of that has a lot to do with what you intake. So let's be a little bit more mindful about things that we're seeing, listening to, speaking out. Let's just be a little bit more mindful. You know, we don't have a big time here, so that's the few sprinkles I would like to drop on this.
Wow.
Real quick, your mental health is just as important as your physical health. And I know from the previous segment, in the same way that we get an annual physical, we need to get an annual mental health wellness assessment, if not more. You know, there's so much to the Black experience. We all could benefit from an objective setting to share that experience.
Wow, man, thank y'all so much. I got to come just hang out with y'all.
Oh, come on, bro. Let's go.
We got to hook up again.
Hey, listen,
thank y'all, man.
We almost look alike, brother. You just got a little, you know.
We could be cousins. I don't know.
Hey,
you could be. You never know. You never know.
Thank you guys. I really enjoyed our time together, man.
Thank you.
Y'all have a blessed day.
Yes, sir, brother, man. Have a great one.
Now, for our last conversation, I'm pleased to have Nate Brown from How Sweet the Sound and my good friend, JJ Hairston. They're here to talk about the partnership that they have with the Ad Council and on the Sounded Out campaign, which focuses on mental health. So we'll set up this by playing a video clip for them. Please show us the clip.
How Sweet the Sound has been around for so many years, since 2007, 2008. You know, it's where choirs come together just to celebrate gospel music all within itself.
How Sweet the Sound is a celebration of gospel music. It's a choir competition, but we've expanded it this year, and it's small choirs, large choirs, it's soloists, and it's dance theater.
Look at the judges that we have as well. You have some of Hezekiah Walker, Ricky Diller, J.J. Harrison, Jacqueline Carter.
Not only did we work closely with the judges on this show, but we also worked with them to help drive education in the Black community on mental health, where gospel music absolutely plays a role.
I'm really happy that we've teamed up with the Ad Council on their Sounded Out campaign. The Sounded Out campaign uses music as a tool for parents to speak to their children about their mental health.
Hi, my name is Sherry Thompson, and I'm from the Ad Council, and we are thrilled to be here with How Sweet the Sound. We have been partnering with How Sweet the Sound to reach the Black community about mental health.
We are bringing the conversation to the people so that they can start feeling energized to talk about mental health and emotional well-being in a positive way, creating a safe space for everyone's soul to show up and celebrate.
It's so good just to be partnered with the Ad Council on this great sponsorship to bring awareness to mental health within the African American community.
And the reason I'm smiling because I'm very familiar How Sweet the Sound, because I spent a couple of years on the road with How Sweet the Sound. So it's so good to have you guys back. Could you tell us a little bit about How Sweet the Sound and what you're doing in the mental health space as it pertains to the African American community?
Absolutely, and thank you all for having us be a part of this program. Really important for our community. So, How Sweet the Sound is a national gospel music competition in which choirs and soloists and dance ensembles compete to win a cash prize. Of course, as you just saw just this year, we had a competition on June 4th at Greenville, South Carolina, the Bon Secours Wellness Arena, where you have these community choirs that come together just to express their gifts. Now, in regards to our mental health space and how we came together with the Ad Council, we knew that we had a captive audience of African Americans who may not be as educated on the signs of mental health or even how to get help. So we saw this as an opportunity to spread awareness of mental health. So therefore, we decided it would be a great opportunity to team up with the Ad Council in their Sounded Out campaign.
Great. So what is the Sounded Out campaign, and how did you partner with the Ad Council to help educate our community on this important topic?
Sure. So the Sound It Out campaign, it uses the power of music to help parents and caregivers start the conversation with their kids about emotional well-being. So what we did, how we partnered with the Ad Council to educate our community was we leveraged our brand and relationship within the gospel music industry. And we created a few things like public service announcements with Pastor J.J. Hairston and J. Kaylin Carr, both who spoke about mental health from their personal experience and the perception of mental health among the faith-based community. We also used gospel music influencers and artists. We created custom flyers and content. And more than anything, we used our live event to speak about mental health. And we were really, really happy to know that just this partnership along with the Ad Council really had an effect on a lot of African Americans in our community.
Wow. Thank you. Pastor JJ, how are you, sir?
Good to see you, bro. How's it going, man?
For those of you that don't know, I see JJ and I see him passing in the gospel music community. So if I seem like he's just a brother and we just talking homeboy to homeboy, it's because we are.
Absolutely.
Welcome, JJ. Welcome.
I'm honored to be here.
Now, talk to us about why this topic is so important to you and what you're doing in your church to help educate people on mental health.
So yeah, I had the opportunity to share when I was at House Meet the Sound competition this year. I had the opportunity to share how the mental health struggle actually hit my home personally. And I talked to my daughter about this, and she said she was okay with me sharing a story. A few years back, my daughter, who was telling us that she was feeling a little unhealthy in her emotional state. And she talked about certain thoughts she was having, feelings she was having. And to be honest, David, you know, me being from the church, growing up in the church, you know, anything that we felt like was contrary to what we believe, we just pled the blood, and that's just
the devil is trying to get you. That's the devil. That's the devil. He's like,
it was a lie. We troubled his head, all of that.
We live and we learn too.
Exactly. And then what I realized was what I needed to do with her was more than just plead the blood. We need to start having conversations. And it became a realization for me when one day my wife called me and said she came to the house and my daughter was really in a negative emotional state. And after that, I came home, we started having different conversations, and we stopped talking about what the Bible says, even though that's what we believe, but we also involved her in counseling. And you know, counseling in the church was kind of like snafu.
Taboo.
The only thing we talked about counseling in church was like we did marital counseling, and all marital counseling was you know, don't do nothing until you get married. That's what marital counseling was. So we weren't really open to having honest conversations about our emotional well-being and our mental well-being. But my personal experience in that made me be more open to it. And now we've been very intentional about having these conversations in the church. Just last week, as a matter of fact, we had a mental health panel at my church when we were having open conversations with mental health professionals about why it's important to have counseling, even giving a reference of how to find African-American counselors. So we've been very intentional about having these conversations. So we believe in deliverance, not only through the blood of Jesus, not only through what the Holy Spirit does, but through conversations and through counselors. I believe many counselors are deliverance teachers as well. And I think you avoid and you take away people's opportunity for deliverance when you don't put them with the right counseling. So that's what we're doing for the church.
And I believe that. Because I have Jesus, my Bible, and I got a counselor too. And it's important for us that are believers to let people know it's okay. You know, God has given them that gift, that talent, give them that opportunity to go and learn so he can help us be delivered. So I'm grateful for my counselor.
Absolutely. And the thing is, many of us say, if you get sick, you go to the doctor. You still believe God, but you go to the doctor.
Right.
So if you have a mental an issue or a problem, you should still go to the doctor. It's just a different type of doctor. There's nothing taboo about that. There's nothing wrong with going to counseling.
If you have a heart attack, you go to the heart doctor. You have a head attack, you go to somebody that can help you with your head.
Exactly. It should seem real simple, but because we've not really been open about having those conversations in the church, it wasn't as simple as it is now for us to talk about.
I think us having these conversations will further open the opportunity for people that see people like you and I who are in the public eye to say, oh, well, let's at least talk about it. And that's what tonight is all about. Let's talk about it. Now, as we close this segment, Nate, where can people go to learn about How Sweet the Sound and the Sound It Out project?
Sure. So to learn more about How Sweet the Sound, you can go to howsweetthesound.com, as we are opening up auditions coming up this September 2022. And if you want to learn more about just the Sound It Out campaign, you can go to sounditouttogether.org, where you can find tools and resources and guides to help you and your child have a better conversation about mental well-being.
Well, thank you guys so much. Thank you. Now, in our final segment tonight of this program, we're going to focus on inspiration. And to help us transition, JJ. Now, I was told that you're going to sing a little something for us tonight. Is that true?
Yeah, man.
That's true.
It's okay to talk and sing, right? So that's what we
you can talk and sing. Can you just set the song up that you're going to be sharing with us tonight?
So the song we're singing tonight is No Reason to Fear. And we usually talk about fear in the about fearing sickness, fearing disease. We don't even have to fear having conversations around mental health. So tonight we have no reason to fear, because at the end of the day, we know Jehovah has the final say.
You know you have no reason to fear, because Jehovah has the final say. If that's your declaration, come on and praise God with us. Yeah. The final say.
Jehovah has the final say.
Say, who has the final say?
Jehovah has the final say.
And no matter what, the doctor says,
Jehovah has
hallelujah,
the final say.
And no matter what the news may say,
Jehovah has
here we go,
the final say. No reason to fear. I have no reason to fear. The Lord is my light.
Whoa.
The Lord is my light.
Clap your hands like this, everybody. Come on. Say, I have
no reason to fear.
Say, I
have no reason to fear. The Lord is my light.
The Lord is my light.
The Lord is my light. Jehovah has the final say. 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 I have no reason to fear. I have no reason to fear. The Lord is the Lord is
lift your voice in this room if you know it. Say it.
I have no reason to fear.
I have no reason to fear.
No reason to fear. The Lord is my light. The Lord is my
right
light.
here, everybody, come on, say
I have no reason to fear.
I hope you're singing it out there.
I have no reason to fear.
Come on, declare it out there.
I have no reason to fear.
I have no reason.
I have no reason to fear.
Why? Because he's with me.
I have no reason to
He's
fear.
walking right beside me.
No reason to
So I have no reason to fear.
no reason to fear.
Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, one thing I know is I won't fear no evil, because the Lord is with me.
No reason to fear.
His rod and his staff,
No reason to fear.
it's a fact that they're always comforting me.
No reason to fear.
And the covered under the blood. No reason to fear. And he walks with me. Yes. No reason to fear. And he talks with me. No reason. And he tells me that I'm his own. No reason to fear. And the joy we share. No reason to fear. As we tarry there. No reason to fear. None other has ever known. No reason to fear. I came to declare to somebody that no matter what's going on in your life, you have no reason to fear. The devil don't like it here. No reason to fear. I said the devil don't like it now. No reason to fear. I said the devil don't like it. No reason. But I'm coming. I said I'm coming. No reason. I said I'm coming. I'm covered under the blood of Jesus. No reason to fear. The Lord is my life. Hey, somebody declare the Lord is my life. I'm so glad that you're my life. The Lord is my life. And I can always trust in you. The Lord is my life. I can always lean on you. Say the Lord is my life. The Lord is my life. Yeah.
Woo, church. That's all I can say is church. That was incredible. Thanks again, JJ, for inspiring us tonight. So let us continue with moments of inspiration. We know that arts can help us express our emotional well-being and feelings, and spoken word is a great example. So help me welcome Mike Ellison, Emmy Award-winning producer, actor, recording artist, and spoken word artist. Mike, we're so glad you could join us tonight.
Thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this. I really appreciate it.
So please share with us what spoken word is and introduce your first guest who's going to close it out with us, I hear, with a very original custom piece for us here tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I think the nation most recently was just, entranced by Amanda Gorman. And that's a great example of what spoken word is, taking the form of poetry, putting it in the spoken word so that people can absorb it off the page. And as we know, in the beginning, there was the word, right? And so even in ancient cultures, griots in Africa, to your grandmother here in America, that spoken word also carries traditions and helps us heal. So you'll see spoken word in cafes, clubs, and that tradition continues. So with that being said, I believe I have the honor of introducing Kenny Thompson, and he's going to share his piece entitled Anxiety, A Fight to Be Okay. Now, Kenny is the winner of the Mental Health Poetry Slam competition that was conducted by the Black Coalition of COVID in the Washington, D.C. area. So with that said, Kenny, I believe it's on you, brother.
Thank you. I really appreciate the introduction. And I just wanted to talk real quick about what inspired this spoken word. One is, I think anxiety is something that a lot of people deal with, but it's also something that a lot of people don't realize that other people deal with. And I know it's something that I grew up with. It's something that I always have felt. And I thought I was kind of weird for feeling the way I felt. And so I would have these conversations with friends who kind of felt the same way, but we would always have these conversations in private. So what inspired this spoken word was that I thought it would be a great thing and a positive thing to have this conversation publicly and out loud so that people would know that they aren't the only ones who feel that way, and that having the conversation about anxiety is a very, very normal thing. And it's something that we all go through at different levels and different stages. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and present to you a spoken word. This is titled A Fight to Be Okay. And I wrote this about 3 years ago, I believe. And so you can check it out even after this on my YouTube channel if you would like. So here we go. Initially, I didn't know what to call it, but I remember when I first felt it. I hated the way it made me feel, but still I couldn't let people know that I held it. It weakened me, but I refused to let people see the weak in me. It felt like it was eating me from the inside out, and it made me want to tear the uneasiness from my insides out. My heartbeat suited for house music, along with the heart pace, each thought race, no route to it. The nervousness, the worry, it sprouts too quick. The panic becomes organic, and I guess I just need to plow through it. So I do my best to remain calm as the butterflies in my stomach result in sweaty palms. Friends keep asking me why I'm so quiet. I tell them that I'm just tired and nothing's wrong, all while all along I just want to go home and be alone, because large crowds make me feel small and as though I'm in danger, and I desperately try to keep my eye on every single stranger. Meeting a bunch of new people brings so much pressure to my chest, and I don't talk a lot. I just often watch and I let them do the rest. See, sometimes I'm scared to succeed. I mean, what if I can't keep it up? Scared of how I'm perceived by the people who show me love. And when the news reports another senseless killing, I am soon engorged in an intense feeling, thinking of the worst outcomes, worrying about friends and family, constantly wondering if we'll all soon see a tragedy, asking God to protect them and to look after me, while looking over my shoulder and around every corner to make sure no one is after me. And I know it's irrational, but sometimes I feel so nervous that I can't even speak properly. I know what I want to say, but the message that I try to convey comes out sloppy. See, it's the overthinking, the self-consciousness, the sleepless nights, the nauseousness, the feeling as though I can barely breathe, but I'm trying not to be obvious. I feel terrified and paralyzed, yet I force a smile through all of it. Self-diagnosis, I'm calling it. This is anxiety, and it resides in me so vibrantly, but I keep it inside of me, quietly, outward smiling, but inward emotions collide so violently. And imagine those, if I can just be a person who struggles with a moderate level of anxiety, imagine those who deal with it severely, and how everything is a fight to breathe, a fight for peace, and a fight to be okay. Thank you.
Wow. Powerful. Amazing.
Thank you.
Greatness. And that was amazing. We know that when words are used in the right way, they can heal. And thank you for being part of the healing for us tonight. Thank you, Mike and Kenny, for sharing those amazing gifts with us. Thank you guys so much. I want to welcome Dr.
Go
ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me, brother man. I think at that point I'm supposed to share a piece as well before we move on to the next segment.
I'm sorry.
No,
I got ahead of myself. Wow.
That's all right. I'm inspired. So after that, I can't leave here without giving y'all something. So as what they've asked me to do is to put this in context. The author of children's classics like Stuart Little and Charlotte's Web is an author named E.B. White. And he once said the following. He said, "I rise every morning torn between a desire to improve the world and a desire to enjoy the world. This makes it hard to plan the day." And I think what we've learned this evening is that it's especially hard when you're a Black man, child, or woman. And so that is the context for this piece, and it's called Mental Health. 3 months shy of 1995, the best rapper alive released Ready to Die. Since hip-hop roots spawned from the blues, Biggie Smalls' rawness brought us the truth. Fast forward to youth, trapped and drilled, rapping about crews they actually kill. Now, what does that reveal? Is life yielding an evil quill, inkwell filled to the brim with grim intention, sending liquid henchmen drenched in a Jordan Peele morbid ordeal, maligning melanated minds into a sunken place we can't get out of by running in place? Everyone I know is in survival mode. Eyes are closed, leaning on Quran, Khalil Gibran, or Bible quotes. Is the Bible code street or domestic? When the victim's afflicted, the villain's respected? Oh, I get it. Better to be perceived as terrorists than concede the need for therapists. Forget best lives, we live our best lies. Hence, our best lies dormant, since nobody likes informants. Wired to find cures. Though I'm not a top blackdoctors.org doctor, I am quite sure the crisis began when tribes arrived ashore. Lost in the wilderness, trauma instilled in us. This crawling illness is a silent thief because survival relied upon hiding grief. The elders remind us behind grinding teeth, boy, keep your business out the street. Don't even think, let alone speak, you'll be deemed weak. No one believes us. Even the saints beseech us. Oh, baby, just take it to Jesus. Well, consider the king who served the dream. Did you know he tried suicide twice by 13? Adversely, umpteen queens perceive Regina King's pain. May her son Ian's peace increase in the fleece of God's mane. And I applaud the god Charlemagne for the alarm he rings. May the calming waves that Tamala sings grant us the stamina to stand by the king who never fails us. May the esteemed Elohim unveil what really ails us. Besides societal ills, remaining silent kills, like stop and frisk. Let's not dismiss the stigma that you got to be a real, figure of speech is a critical piece. Consider the terms readily unleashed. Schizo, postal, sicko, loco, fruit loop, screw loose, cray cray, cuckoo. So if you ever felt helpless, what would you do? Cry like a man? Nah, bruh. Grind like a man. Weep like a woman. Girl, keep it pushing for the sake of your children. Embracing Jason Wilson, the former is stronger for nation building. With the ability to simply say, I'm not okay, brutal days beautifully give way to youthful praise. You've earned it. You deserve it. You're gonna live amid this discernment. It says we're healed. Let's walk in healing. Mental health is real. Thank you for talking this evening.
Wow. And by the way, I did hear my woman's name in there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Man.
I'm a fan, sir.
That's one of those that you just kind of sit back. That's the custom piece. I heard wow. That was great.
Thank you.
That right there was great. Thank you guys so much for just taking the time to talk. Let's talk about it. Those are some great pieces, man. I'm sorry I almost cut you off. That would have been I would have missed that. I even heard the shout out to Regina King. I heard it was just like the words as you went. They just kept going, man. You pulled me in.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. Praise God.
Thank you guys so much, man. Thank you for sharing with us. Incredible talent. Now I got to go on YouTube and watch everything from y'all. Love you guys, man. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you. Thank you, brother.
Let's welcome. I know it's time for us to close, but please let's welcome in Dr. Tuckson back. This has been an amazing night, right? I think you're muted, but I think he was just telling us thanking for an amazing night. This has truly been an amazing, informative, inspiring, but we've only scratched the surface of what we have to do. We thank the Ad Council and the Black Coalition Against COVID on their efforts in this space. And thank you guys so much for creating a space that we can just come and talk.
Yeah, David, I was saying, man, I wanted to thank you. We're blessed to have you as a part of this evening, and it was a good show because of you. And I also second thanking all the town hall participants, and really want to thank the Ad Council and blackdoctor.org for this partnership with the Black Coalition Against COVID. I hope that you will see coming across the screen in just a moment the list of resources for people to use after the event. And if we have those list of resources, let's go ahead and make sure that we put that list up as we close out the show. There we go. We really want you to pay attention to that because we really wanted to make sure that we did the three things we said we would do, David, right before we started. Number one, we said that we wanted to educate. And I think we've done a great job of that with that panel. And now you have these resources. Number two, we wanted to share real talk, real stories. And we shared those stories, and none better than yours, David. And so thank you for your straightforward and bringing your life in front of us in a positive and healing way. And then third, we said we wanted to inspire. And I think that the last parts of this show have definitely been inspirational to me. So as I close my part and let you say the last word, let's remember, it's okay to talk about it. So let's talk about it. Thanks again, Dave.
I echo that. It's okay to talk about it. There is no shame, no judgment, just love here. So it's okay to talk about it. And thank you guys for joining us here. Love you guys.
A lot of kids who see me see the life that an artist lives and the touring that we do and the music that we make, and see this career that we have is super fun, and there's no way you could be sad or mad or depressed about anything. But, you know, I deal with the same issues as well. Taking care of yourself and making sure you don't always feel alone is kind of the most important part. What you really need is a friend. Kind of just recharges your soul in a way. Anytime my friends kind of beat around the bush about stuff, I like to call them out on it. If you feel something in your gut, if you feel something's wrong, you should talk to them about that. I know it may seem awkward and difficult to reach out to a friend who's struggling with mental health, but the best thing you can do is be a friend. Start the conversation and learn more at seizetheawkward.org.